Hi, welcome to another episode of EMDR with Alice. So today we're going to actually just talk about the purposes of phases 5 and 6. I often find that there's confusion around what to do in phases 5 and 6. So there's a couple things I just want to do some review on today because I think it can make such a big difference in the work that you're doing with your clients. So first of all, I want to just talk about the purpose of phases 5 and 6, and then we'll kind of go back and talk through the structure of them. So first of all, the purpose of phase 5 is it's called the installation phase. And what are we installing? Well, we're installing the positive cognition that was identified, either the one that was identified in phase 3, or we give an opportunity for the client to maybe name something that feels even more true or even deeper for them that maybe has come up in their processing through phase 4. And so once we've identified what that positive belief is, then we want to work on installing it. So we always ask for the VOC that helps us assess if there's anything that's still left in that memory network system that keeps them from fully believing that positive cognition. Why is that question important? Why is that VOC important? Well, because it gives us an opportunity to reprocess anything that's still left in the network that needs to be reprocessed. So it's important to remember phases 4, 5, and 6 are all reprocessing phases. And so anything that keeps them from fully believing that positive belief is part of the memory network, and we want to give it a chance to process on out. So this is oftentimes where blocking beliefs could be hiding out, or it could be other memories. They may say, well, there's a lot of other things that have happened in my life that kind of keep me from fully believing that. And we'll say, yeah, so let's just hold the truth that there's examples of a lot of other things that have happened. And so maybe what we might offer here is for a client like that, is maybe a step in the direction towards the positive belief. So instead of it being like, I am lovable, it could be, I'm learning to believe I'm lovable. Or instead of I'm enough, I'm learning to know that I'm enough. So it might be a step in that right direction that feels more true, that they can feel true about it now. And so we might offer them like a step piece that helps them connect to that positive cognition with the knowledge that we're going to do some more work on these other memory networks that hold that negative belief, so that we know we're going to eventually get fully into that positive cognition and fully believing it. So that's one piece that can happen in phase 5, is that step piece that we can add in. It's also important to note in phase 5 that when we're doing that positive cognition and installing it, that there's not a negative in there. So we don't want clients to say something like, so maybe the negative belief is, I see this sometimes with kids or with teens, is like, I'm ugly. The positive belief wouldn't be, I'm not ugly, right? And so we want it to be more of an I am statement. And so if a client throws a not in there, right? Like, so if they say, I'm not at fault, or it's not my fault, I would say, how can we put that into a positive statement? How can we phrase that in a way where it's like this positive, true statement? And so you may work with them a little bit to get this really positive statement that's very affirming and true to help connect in. I do feel like it's really important to highlight that the positive cognition is something that is already in their adaptive networks. The only thing we're doing is helping install that positive cognition that's already there. We're helping them connect into it, helping connect that maladaptive network where the negative belief was kind of blocking from fully believing this positive cognition that's always kind of been in the adaptive network. So we just could never connect to it. So we're not trying to change anything. We're not trying to put something in. So the word install can make us kind of think that. But no, it's actually already there. We're just trying to install or connect that memory network where the maladaptive memory was stored to this adaptive network where the positive cognition is fully stored. So when we're assessing that voc, we're listening for what's kind of in the way of that connection fully forming and fully happening, and then giving the chance for the brain, right, and the nervous system to process anything out that's kind of keeping them from fully believing that. So phase 5 is really important. I have some people who will say, well, like my client came back and the memory we were working on didn't seem to bother them anymore, so we moved on to another memory. And I always follow up and say, well, did you do phases 5 and 6? Even if they do feel better about the memory. And they'll say, no, we didn't actually. I was like, well, let's go back, because it's really important to do that phase 5 and 6, because number one, it helps us catch anything that might still be there that maybe doesn't have as much of a charge or big charge anymore. But if there's any beliefs in there, I want to be able to get those and help process those and connect to that adaptive network, and give it a chance to fully finish out, right? So we want to always kind of go back and finish all of those phases 4, 5, and 6. Another thing that I hear some people say is that for installation, you're doing slow bilateral. And that's not true, because 4, 5, and 6 are all reprocessing phases. So we're doing fast bilateral. We're still giving the brain an opportunity to process any maladaptive information here. So let's move on to phase 6. Quick review. Phase 6 is our body scan. And again, if anything comes up in this phase, that's okay. Like, we want to catch it now and give it a chance to process, because we're activating brainstem here. And so we want to give the chance for anything that's left in this memory that's connected to the body to have a chance to process out. So that's why we do brainstem. That's why we do body scan. So having the client hold that memory with that positive cognition and then scanning down through the body. And we're looking for anything that's come up that wasn't present when they walked in, right? So if they had like some aches and pains or some chronic pain things that they're already present as they walked in the office before you activated that particular memory network, those don't necessarily count. Now, sometimes those things can lessen or even go away, but if they're still present at the end of the session, that's not what we count in a body scan. We're counting, since we've done phase 3 and activated this particular memory, anything that's come up that feels connected or related to the body and is present as we do that scan, we want to focus on it and give it a chance to reprocess through. Again, we're using long, fast bilateral here and checking in and seeing if that's clearing. Sometimes, especially if we're working with complex trauma, preverbal memory can kind of come up, or feeder memory can come up in phase 6. And so it's the body sensation might be connected to actually something else. And if that's the case, we can always just check. If you have the client staying with the body sensation for several sets and it doesn't seem to be shifting or moving, I may just ask, does it feel connected to this memory or does it feel connected to something else? And oftentimes clients can define that. And if they say, yeah, no, I think it's connected to something else, then I may say, well, let's just notice that, kind of set that aside and come back to this memory with the positive cognition, do another scan, and then we'll assess if anything comes up then. If not, we've got a clear scan, and then we can name whatever that was connected to, that feeder memory. And if we have time, we may move and start processing that. If we don't have time, I'll add it to the treatment plan and we'll check in and do that at a later time. So phases 5 and 6 are important. They're reprocessing phases. They're opportunities to catch anything that may still be left in that network, in that memory network, and we want to give it a chance to process out. It could be where feeder memories pop up, blocking beliefs pop up, and so we want to give those an opportunity to process on through and fully clear out that memory network. Thanks for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.